Hello, my name is Nick Thomas. I'm a professional juggler and slinkier, and today I'm gonna show you how to do the energy beam. It looks something like this. Let's get started. Now the energy beam is actually the basis for a lot of different slinky tricks, so you won't be able to do any of these until you learn how to do the energy beam first. And another great thing about the energy beam is you can do it with almost any slinky. However, the larger the slinky, the slower the energy beam is gonna be. And having a larger slinky makes it easier in some ways, but a lot harder in other ways. However, I recommend doing this with a plastic slinky like the one I have, because if you try it with a metal slinky, if you pull too hard, it'll bend it out of shape just like this. But if you wanna get a slinky like this one, I have some links in the description down below. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is make sure you're holding the slinky correctly. So you're gonna try to grab about 3 or so coils in each hand. If you're using a slinky that has a lot thinner coils, you might need to grab a little bit more than 3, but for most, you'll probably grab around 3 coils in each hand. Now you wanna make sure there's a slight separation between the coils that you're holding and the coils that you're not holding. So what I like to do is sort of use my thumb as a way to get in between each of the coils, but you can also use one of your fingers. You also wanna make sure that not all of your fingers are separating the slinky from each other, just a little bit to make sure that none of the coils go through when it's going back and forth. So once we're gripping the slinky the correct way, what we wanna do is hold the slinky with our palms up, just like this, and slowly move our hands back and forth, just like this, just enough to get all of the coils from one side and then to the other side. So you don't wanna start off like this, but just nice and small, moving all the coils from one side to the other side. Try to find that rhythm of the slinky. You don't wanna be going too fast where it's out of control or too slow, but try to find a nice rhythm where it kind of is always bouncing back and forth. So this is going to be the natural rhythm of your slinky. So yours might be a little bit different than mine. If yours has more coils, it'll be a little bit slower. If they have less coils, it'll be a little bit faster. So now that we found the natural rhythm of the slinky, I have a few tips I wanna go over before we start moving our hands farther apart. The first tip is to make sure your palms are always facing upwards. We're not gonna be bouncing the slinky back and forth this way, but make sure they are facing upwards the whole time. And the second tip is that it's always going to be a pull, not a push. Now it might look like I'm kind of pushing the slinky back and forth, but it's actually a pull down and then another pull down and another pull down at the right rhythm. So what happens is when you do the pull downwards, all of the coils will rush down to where you pull to. But as long as you're holding the other end nice and tight, what'll happen is you'll then want to bounce back to the hand that you're holding it in, just like that. So what we want to try to do is pull at the correct time when all of the coils are on one side and it starts to go back to the other side. Kind of think of it like you're on the swing, where you want to give a boost right at the right time, right when you're reaching that back part. You boost it, and then you can add energy so you can go back and forth and back and forth. That's exactly what we're doing with the slinky by doing a pull one way, pull the other way, but if we do it at the right time, we can keep adding more and more energy to it so it can flow back and forth nice and smooth like this. My third tip is after you do the downwards pull, make sure that you slowly rise back up. What I see a lot of people doing is they do a quick downwards pull, but then they basically push the slinky back up to where they were. And what happens is you basically cancel out the pull that you just did by pushing right back up on the slinky. It's kind of like 2 waves crashing into each other and canceling each other out. So quick pull, slow rise back up, quick pull, slow rise back up, quick pull, slow rise back up, quick pull, slow rise back up. So what we're gonna try to do is find that rhythm that you had when you were nice and close, and instead of just slowly going back and forth, what we're gonna try to do is keep that rhythm, but with a quick pull downwards and a slow rise back up. So instead of doing this, we do a quick pull, just like this. Now when you first get started, you wanna make sure your hands are nice and close to each other. We don't wanna start out all the way back here. We wanna start off right about here and make sure it is completely under control. Then once it starts to feel smooth, we can slowly move our hands apart. Now if it falls apart like this, don't just shake it to get it back. Put your hands close together and then restart. So pull, 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 just like this. Now keep in mind the rhythm of your slinky will be a little bit different than mine, so don't just copy my movements and speed. You wanna make sure you customize it a little bit to your slinky. And a quick note is if at any point your wrists start to hurt or they start to feel really tired, you can take a break, come back another time. And if you come back later in the day and it still hurts, maybe try again tomorrow. Just make sure you don't overdo it. It's a very unique motion, so it will be a little weird at first. And once you start to feel very comfortable in the rhythm, you can slowly move your hands apart just like this. Now, when you first do it, it might kind of fall flat, and that's okay. You can restart get it going with your hands close, and then slowly move it apart again. If you're going too fast, it's gonna look kind of like this, where it's just out of control. If you're going too slow, it's just gonna kind of flop in between. Now, it took me a couple days before it felt comfortable with my hands sort of at my side like this. And you'll notice that once you get your hands any farther apart than this, what you really need to do is, instead of going straight down, you actually kind of want to do it at a slight angle. So you sort of want to do it down and away rather than straight down. Because what happens is when your hands are far apart and you go straight down, you don't really have enough energy to go from side to side. So you kind of need to do a little bit of a pull down and away to get it to keep going. But of course, make sure you feel comfortable every step of the way before moving your hands farther apart. And like I mentioned before, this will take a lot of practice before it feels super comfortable. It took me a couple days before I could do it around here, and probably a few weeks before I could really move my hands farther apart and still be able to keep the energy beam going. But if you practice about 15 minutes a day, you should be able to get it in no time. Make sure to follow all the steps and don't rush ahead too quick. Don't have your hands out like this. Make sure not to skip ahead and have your hands out like this. Don't do that. Make sure you have it very comfortable each step of the way, and then slowly work on moving your hands a little bit farther apart where it feels super smooth. We don't want to be making huge, giant movements. We want to be able to do it where it just kind of looks like this, going back and forth, and feel very comfortable. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any problems when learning this trick, or if you have any ideas for future videos, you can let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.